Most people believe happiness comes from success, money, recognition, or comfort. But what if happiness doesn't come from what we achieve, but from how we experience what we're doing? This book explores a powerful idea. The moments when life feels most alive, meaningful, and fulfilling are not passive moments of pleasure, but moments of deep engagement. Moments when we are so absorbed in an activity that time seems to disappear, self-doubt fades away, and all attention is focused on the present. This mental state is called flow. Flow is not about relaxing on a beach or escaping responsibility. It is about total involvement. It happens when a person is fully immersed in a challenging activity that requires skill, focus, and effort. Athletes experience it during peak performance, artists feel it while creating, writers feel it when words seem to write themselves. Even everyday people experience it when they lose themselves in meaningful work or learning. The key insight is that happiness is not something that happens to us, it is something we actively create by how we structure our attention. Most of human suffering does not come from pain itself, but from the inability to control attention. The mind constantly jumps between worries about the future, regrets about the past, comparisons with others, and endless distractions. When attention is scattered, life feels chaotic and unsatisfying. Flow is the opposite of that chaos. When someone enters flow, the mind becomes ordered. Thoughts align with action. Awareness is fully invested in what is happening now. In those moments, people feel strong, capable, and alive. One of the most surprising ideas in the book is that external circumstances matter far less than we think. Wealth, status, and comfort do not guarantee happiness. In fact, many people who have everything still feel empty. Meanwhile, others with far less report deep satisfaction because they know how to engage fully with their lives. This happens because happiness depends on whether consciousness is in harmony. When inner experience is aligned and purposeful, life feels meaningful regardless of conditions. Flow occurs when there is a balance between challenge and skill. If a task is too easy, boredom appears. If it is too difficult, anxiety takes over. But when difficulty stretches ability just enough, attention sharpens and engagement deepens. This balance explains why growth feels good, even when it is uncomfortable. When skills improve and challenges rise accordingly, life becomes a series of engaging experiences rather than repetitive routines. Another important aspect of flow is clear goals. The mind functions best when it knows what it is trying to do. Uncertainty scatters attention. Clear objectives focus it. When goals are present and feedback is immediate, people naturally become absorbed in the activity. This is why games are so engaging. They provide structure, rules, feedback, and progression. Flow is not accidental, it is designed. The same principle applies to life. When daily activities lack structure or purpose, the mind drifts. When activities are intentionally shaped to include challenge, skill, and meaning, engagement increases. Flow also changes the sense of self. During deep immersion, people stop thinking about themselves. Self-consciousness disappears. Ironically, this temporary loss of self leads to a stronger sense of identity afterward. People emerge from flow feeling more confident, capable, and whole. Time itself behaves differently in flow. Hours can feel like minutes. This distortion is not an illusion, but a sign that attention is fully occupied. When awareness is completely engaged, there is no excess mental energy left for worrying about time. One of the most practical lessons from this book is that flow is not reserved for special talents or rare moments. It can be cultivated deliberately. Any activity can become a source of enjoyment if approached with the right mindset. Work does not have to be endured. Learning does not have to be forced. Even routine tasks can become engaging when treated as opportunities to improve skill and attention. The quality of life, according to this perspective, depends on how we experience each moment, not on what we possess. When attention is mastered, experience improves, and when experience improves, life feels richer. This shifts responsibility inward. Happiness is no longer something to chase in the future, it becomes something to practice in the present. Flow teaches that meaning is not discovered, but created through engagement. When we invest ourselves fully in what we do, life responds with clarity, energy, and purpose. And this is only the beginning. To understand why flow is so rare, we first need to understand how easily attention is disrupted. The human mind evolved to respond to threats, novelty, and uncertainty. This helped our ancestors survive, but in modern life, it often works against us. Today, attention is constantly pulled in every direction. Notifications, news, comparisons, worries, and endless choices compete for mental space. As a result, many people feel mentally exhausted even when they are not physically tired. Their energy is drained not by effort, but by disorder in consciousness. When attention is unmanaged, thoughts turn inward and become repetitive. The mind begins to replay fears, regrets, and imagined problems. This internal noise creates anxiety and dissatisfaction, even when nothing is objectively wrong. One of the key ideas in the book is that suffering increases when the mind is idle but unfocused. Contrary to popular belief, leisure alone does not create happiness. In fact, unstructured free time often leads to boredom, restlessness, or unease. This explains why people sometimes feel worse during moments of rest than during work. When there is no challenge demanding attention, the mind turns on itself. Pleasure and enjoyment are not the same thing. Pleasure is passive. It comes from comfort, entertainment, or consumption. Enjoyment, on the other hand, requires effort. It comes from involvement, growth, and mastery. Pleasure fades quickly and often leaves emptiness behind. Enjoyment builds strength and satisfaction over time. Modern society offers endless pleasure, but very little guidance on how to experience enjoyment. This creates a paradox. People have more comfort than ever before, yet many feel disconnected and unfulfilled. Flow solves this paradox by showing that happiness depends on active participation in life. When attention is invested in meaningful challenges, experience becomes rewarding regardless of external reward. Another reason flow is rare is that many people avoid challenge. Growth requires discomfort. It requires risking failure and stretching ability. But the ego prefers safety. It prefers familiar routines even if they are unsatisfying. Avoiding challenge protects self-image but weakens confidence. Engaging with challenge strengthens identity, even when mistakes occur. The book explains that people who experience flow regularly develop what is called an autotelic personality. This means they do things not only for external rewards, but because the activity itself is meaningful. They are curious, resilient, and internally motivated. These individuals do not rely heavily on external validation. They generate satisfaction from effort and learning. As a result, they are less dependent on circumstances and more resilient to stress. Flow also requires clear feedback. The mind needs to know whether it is progressing. This does not have to come from others. It can come from self-observation, improvement, or mastery. When feedback is absent, attention drifts. When feedback is present, engagement deepens. This explains why craftsmanship, sports, learning, and creative work are powerful sources of fulfillment. They naturally provide challenge, feedback, and progression. The book also challenges the idea that happiness comes from control over the external world. True control is internal. It is the ability to direct attention deliberately instead of reacting automatically.
When people believe happiness depends on conditions, they become anxious and dependent. When they learn to shape experience from within, they gain freedom. This does not mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It means approaching life as something to engage with actively, rather than endure passively. Flow transforms obstacles into opportunities for involvement. Difficulty becomes a signal for growth rather than a threat to comfort. And this shift changes everything.
One of the most powerful ideas in this book is that flow is not limited to special moments or creative professions. It can be experienced in everyday life, including work, routines, and responsibilities that many people consider boring or exhausting. The difference is not the activity itself, but the way attention is applied. Work is often seen as something to endure in order to reach moments of rest. But when work lacks engagement, rest rarely feels satisfying. The mind carries dissatisfaction into free time, creating a cycle of fatigue without fulfillment. Flow changes this relationship. When work is approached as a craft rather than an obligation, it becomes a source of meaning. Even repetitive tasks can become engaging when treated as opportunities to improve skill, efficiency, or precision. This requires a shift in mindset. Instead of asking how to escape effort, the question becomes how to invest attention more fully. People who experience flow at work often redesign their tasks internally. They set personal challenges, track progress, and focus on mastery rather than external rewards. This does not require changing jobs. It requires changing the way attention interacts with tasks. This is why two people doing the same job can have completely different experiences. One feels trapped, the other feels engaged. The difference lies in how they structure goals and challenges. The book emphasizes that meaning does not come from titles, salaries, or recognition. It comes from the quality of experience. When effort is aligned with growth, work becomes a source of pride rather than stress. Flow also transforms learning. Learning is most effective when difficulty is balanced with ability. If material is too simple, attention fades. If it is too complex, frustration takes over. When learning sits at the edge of competence, curiosity activates and time disappears. This explains why people often lose motivation when learning feels either overwhelming or pointless. The problem is not intelligence or discipline, it is poor alignment between challenge and skill. When learning is structured progressively, improvement becomes addictive. Each small success reinforces confidence and fuels further effort. Flow also plays a crucial role in relationships. Conversations become meaningful when attention is fully present. Listening deeply, responding thoughtfully, and engaging emotionally creates connection. Distraction weakens relationships. Presence strengthens them. Even leisure becomes more satisfying when approached intentionally. Passive consumption rarely produces lasting happiness. Activities that require participation, creativity, or skill offer deeper rewards. The book challenges the idea that happiness is something to be found later, after goals are achieved. Waiting postpones fulfillment indefinitely. Flow teaches that fulfillment is created now, through engagement. Another important insight is that attention is finite. Where attention goes, energy follows. When attention is wasted on worry, comparison, or distraction, energy drains away. When attention is focused, energy increases. This creates a feedback loop. Engagement fuels motivation. Motivation fuels further engagement. Flow also strengthens resilience. When challenges are approached as opportunities for involvement, setbacks lose their emotional weight. Failure becomes information, not identity. This mindset protects mental health.
Instead of feeling overwhelmed by obstacles, people feel capable of navigating them. Ultimately, flow reshapes how life is experienced. It replaces passive waiting with active participation. It turns ordinary moments into meaningful experiences. And as we move forward, the book begins to explore how people can protect flow from internal and external chaos, and how to build a life that supports deep engagement rather than constant distraction.
A central idea in this book is that quality of life depends less on what happens to us and more on how we interpret and respond to what happens. Two people can face the same situation and experience it completely differently based on how their attention is structured. Some people seem to maintain inner stability even during hardship, while others feel overwhelmed even in comfortable conditions. The difference is not toughness or luck, it is the ability to create order in consciousness. When attention is fragmented, experience becomes chaotic, thoughts collide, emotions escalate, and clarity disappears. But when attention is organized around clear goals and meaningful challenges, inner experience becomes coherent, even in difficult circumstances. This is why people can experience flow during intense effort, danger, or uncertainty. In those moments, attention is fully engaged. Fear diminishes because there is no space left for it. The book explores examples of individuals who faced extreme adversity, yet maintained a sense of purpose and dignity. They did not deny reality or escape suffering. They transformed experience by directing attention toward meaning, skill, or contribution. This reveals a powerful truth. Happiness is not the absence of difficulty, it is the presence of engagement. Pain becomes unbearable when it feels meaningless. Difficulty becomes tolerable when it serves growth or purpose. Flow provides a framework for turning suffering into structure. By setting internal goals, focusing on what can be controlled, and finding challenge within limitation, people regain agency. Another important insight is that mental energy is shaped by habits. Repeated patterns of thought create default modes of attention. Over time, these defaults determine whether a person experiences life as enriching or draining. This means that happiness is trainable, attention can be disciplined, focus can be strengthened, engagement can be learned. The book emphasizes that cultivating flow is not about eliminating emotion, but about regulating it. Strong emotions are not enemies. When directed, they fuel intensity and commitment. When uncontrolled, they overwhelm. People who experience flow regularly learn to channel emotion into effort. Anxiety becomes alertness, frustration becomes determination, curiosity replaces fear. This emotional regulation creates psychological strength. Life feels manageable not because it is easy, but because inner resources are developed. Flow also changes the relationship with external rewards. When satisfaction comes from engagement, dependency on approval, money, or status decreases. This reduces vulnerability to disappointment. The book makes it clear that external success does not guarantee internal order. Many people achieve their goals only to feel empty afterward. Without flow, achievement loses meaning. But when flow is present, even modest accomplishments feel deeply satisfying. This part of the journey reinforces a key lesson. The mind is not a passive receiver of experience. It is an active creator of meaning. When attention is mastered, life becomes more coherent, resilient, and fulfilling. And as we move toward the final sections, the focus shifts toward how individuals can design their lives to support flow over the long term, rather than relying on chance moments of engagement. As the book moves toward practical application, the focus shifts from individual moments of flow to the structure of an entire life. Flow is powerful, but random moments of engagement are not enough to create lasting fulfillment. What matters is how consistently attention is directed over time. A life built around flow is not chaotic or impulsive, it is intentional. It involves choosing goals that are challenging, meaningful, and aligned with personal values. These goals act as organizing principles, giving direction to effort and coherence to experience. When goals are absent or unclear, attention drifts. Energy is wasted reacting to circumstances instead of shaping them. But when goals are clear, even routine actions become purposeful. The book explains that long-term happiness depends on the ability to invest attention in pursuits that grow in complexity over time. Simple pleasures lose their impact quickly. Growth-oriented activities remain engaging because they evolve as skills develop. This is why mastery is so fulfilling. As competence increases, new challenges emerge. The experience stays fresh. Effort remains meaningful. Another important idea is that discipline is not the enemy of enjoyment. In fact, discipline protects flow. Without structure, attention is easily stolen by distractions. With structure, attention becomes stable. Many people resist discipline because they associate it with restriction. But discipline, when aligned with purpose, creates freedom. It frees the mind from indecision, distraction, and regret. The book also highlights the importance of integrating different areas of life into a coherent whole. Work, relationships, learning, and leisure should not compete for attention. They should support one another. When values are consistent across life domains, inner conflict decreases. When values conflict, attention fragments and stress increases. Flow thrives in environments where goals, values, and actions are aligned. Another powerful insight is that meaning is not something waiting to be discovered. It is something that emerges from commitment. When people invest themselves fully in chosen goals, life feels meaningful regardless of outcome. This challenges the idea that meaning comes from finding the perfect career, relationship, or passion. Meaning grows from engagement, not from perfection. The book also reminds us that setbacks are inevitable. No meaningful goal is achieved without difficulty. What determines long-term satisfaction is not the absence of obstacles, but the ability to remain engaged despite them. People who build their lives around flow develop resilience. They see challenges as part of the process, not as signs of failure. Another key lesson is that attention should be protected. Not all information deserves access to the mind. Constant exposure to noise, negativity, and distraction weakens the ability to experience flow. Designing a flow-centered life means choosing environments, habits, and relationships that support focus and growth. Over time, these choices compound. What begins as effort becomes identity. What begins as discipline becomes freedom. And as the book approaches its final ideas, the focus turns toward wisdom, understanding how to sustain engagement throughout life, even as circumstances change.
As life evolves, circumstances change, energy levels shift, roles transform, goals that once mattered may lose their importance. One of the most valuable insights in this book is that flow is not limited to youth, ambition, or peak performance. It can accompany a person throughout an entire lifetime. What matters is not the specific activity, but the ability to adapt goals and challenges to current abilities. Flow thrives when challenge and skill remain balanced. As skills change, challenges must change too. People who maintain engagement as they age are not necessarily those with the most success, but those with the most flexible attention. They continue to find meaning by adjusting how they invest energy. The book emphasizes that stagnation is not caused by aging, but by loss of direction. When people stop setting goals, attention loses structure. When goals are renewed, vitality returns. This applies not only to career or achievement, but to relationships, learning, and personal growth.
Curiosity is a powerful source of flow. As long as curiosity remains alive, engagement remains possible. Another important idea is that wisdom grows from experience only when experience is reflected upon. Without reflection, events pass without leaving understanding behind. With reflection, even hardship becomes a source of insight. Flow supports this process by keeping attention active and purposeful. Instead of replaying regrets or fearing the future, attention is directed toward growth in the present. The book also explores how people can transcend self-centered concerns through flow. When engagement deepens, focus shifts from personal gain to contribution, meaning expands beyond the self. This shift creates a sense of connection. Work becomes service, learning becomes sharing, effort becomes expression. At this stage, fulfillment is no longer measured by achievement, but by coherence. Life feels meaningful because experiences align with values. The book suggests that the highest quality of life is achieved when individuals integrate personal goals with goals that benefit others. Flow becomes a bridge between self-development and contribution. Another key lesson is acceptance. Not everything can be controlled. Flow does not require domination over life, but cooperation with it. When energy is invested where influence exists, frustration decreases. People who master attention learn to let go of what they cannot change and focus deeply on what they can. This balance creates peace without passivity and engagement without obsession. As the journey nears its end, one message becomes clear. Happiness is not something that happens when conditions are perfect. It is something that emerges when attention is used well. Flow is not a destination, it is a way of moving through life.
When all the ideas in this book are brought together, a simple but profound truth emerges. The quality of life is shaped by the quality of attention. Where attention goes, experience follows. Most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances, emotions, and distractions. Flow offers a different path. It invites individuals to participate actively in shaping their inner world instead of being controlled by it. This does not require extraordinary talent or perfect conditions. It requires intention. It requires choosing how attention is used moment by moment. Flow teaches that happiness is not found in comfort, status, or accumulation. These may bring temporary pleasure, but they do not create lasting fulfillment. Fulfillment comes from engagement, growth, and purpose. When people learn to invest themselves fully in what they do, life becomes richer. Ordinary moments gain depth. Challenges become meaningful. Even difficulty feels worthwhile when it serves development. Another important realization is that attention is a limited resource. It cannot be spent everywhere. When it is scattered, experience becomes shallow. When it is focused, experience deepens. This makes attention one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. It determines whether life feels chaotic or coherent, empty or meaningful. Flow also restores a sense of agency. Instead of waiting for motivation, people create it through action. Instead of chasing happiness, they build it through engagement. The book ultimately reframes success. Success is not measured by what is achieved, but by how fully life is lived. A person who experiences deep engagement consistently may live a richer life than someone who achieves greatly but remains disconnected. There is also a quiet responsibility in this message. No one else can manage your attention for you. No one else can choose your focus. This responsibility can feel heavy, but it is also empowering. Because once you realize that experience is shaped from within, you stop waiting for the world to change. You begin shaping your inner world instead. Flow does not promise ease, it promises meaning. It does not remove effort,
It makes effort worthwhile. A life built around flow is not free from struggle, but it is free from emptiness. And perhaps the most important insight of all is this: life is not something that happens to us, it is something we participate in. When attention is engaged, life responds.